It's the end of an era for Nintendo. The Nintendo DS line that started in 2004 and with the original DS and continued all the way with the DSi and the 3DS has finally come to an end. Nintendo have officially announced that they are no longer manufacturing the Nintendo 3DS. That's it. It's January of last year we've known that Nintendo have been done with the 3DS. This isn't exactly surprising news. They said in January of last year that they were no longer going to be making first party games for it. And I believe the very last first party game for the 3DS was Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey. Which to me is incredible because that was one of the first games I ever played, one of the first video games I ever played. Like the second or third. New Super Mario Bros. DS was the first video game I ever played, and then I think Bowser's Inside Story and Mario Kart DS. Point is, to me it's kind of poetic and bittersweet that the very last game that they made for the 3DS happens to be one of the first I ever played. So obviously this news came out a few weeks ago, like last week or something, but I haven't been motivated with YouTube lately, so I didn't get around to covering it straight away, but I decided I had to do a video on it anyway because it's not every day you see a Nintendo console come to an end. In fact, in the time that I've been a fan of Nintendo, keeping up to date with regular updates, I've only seen the Wii U and now the 3DS go. So it truly is sad because this was a pivotal moment in the lifespan of Nintendo in the gaming world. So many iconic and legendary games for this whole family of systems. So many class games, like I said, Mario Kart, New Super Mario Bros, etc., Metroid Prime Hunters. So many games and so many memories that it really is sad. I don't know, because if we look at the Wii U era, and I was watching Arlo's video and he pointed this out, the 3DS is what kept Nintendo alive from 2014 up to 2017, when the Wii U was failing horribly and sales were at an all-time low for both games and for the console. The one thing that was keeping Nintendo afloat was the 3DS. It was a massive success and every game they came out for was selling huge amounts of units. And that is truly a testament to the legacy of this phenomenal handheld. The fact that, like, who knows, like, where Nintendo would be today if they'd even still be making games today if it weren't for the 3DS during those dark years. And obviously when the Switch first came along, people wanted Nintendo to stop making 3DS games right away, but they kept supporting it for the first 3 years of the Switch's life. They kept chugging out games for the 3DS. And some people were angry because they wanted these games on the Switch, and I can understand that, but as someone who absolutely adores and loves the 3DS, I really appreciated it. I appreciate the fact that they kept it going for as long as they could, and as we know, I mean, even if they didn't stop manufacturing it now and they still make games for it, the 3DS would still probably last another few years. I don't know how long more it would have lasted, but I reckon Nintendo would still have gotten another 2 to 3 years at least out of it. Which is shocking because you think of the 3DS and it is an old enough console. The 3DS came out in, I think, 2011. So from 2011 to 2019, that's a pretty long lifespan for a console, and it's really impressive. It all comes down to the phenomenal library of games. So much diversity. There was something for everyone on the 3DS, and that's what made it so special. But to talk about my own relationship, my own experience with the DS system, I say DS system because I see this as one whole. I want to talk about the whole thing because this isn't just the end to one specific console, it's the end of this whole family, and I want to take time to appreciate all these. As you can see, I have a DS Lite, a DSi that has a New Super Mario Bros. Cover actually, that was really cool, and a 3DS. So my original DS Lite, I don't remember when I got this because I was very young. I was about 8. I presume I got it for Christmas. Some of the early games I had for it: New Super Mario Bros. DS, Mario Kart, Bowser's Inside Story, and the Transformers first movie games. I had those, and I had the Revenge of the Fallen Autobots game. The sad thing is, I was a child, and being a child with a console, I can't handle rage very well. So whenever I'd get angry, and it was always specifically at the Revenge of the Fallen game, I would always smack the 3DS. I would hit it off my knee, I'd punch the screen, I dropped it a few times. And eventually it did stop working when I was halfway through a game, but this thing was able to take a beating, which when I look back at it now is absolutely incredible, considering like the quality of it, that it went through so much abuse and lasted for so long. I had this maybe about a year and a half, I'd say. I don't even know. You might be asking why I still have it, why I didn't throw it out. Nostalgia. Honestly, the only answer is I'm a heavily nostalgic person. Even though this is completely useless, if I charge it or if I try to turn it on, it doesn't turn on. So there's no reason for me to keep it. It's completely useless, but I keep it because it reminds me of my childhood. Even though it's completely broken and useless, I keep it because it's a fond reminder of all those memories. So then, about a year later, I got the DSi. I remember I got this in the Argos catalogue at the time. I remember going up to Argos, my mum telling the person behind the counter how I'd broken this one after like hitting and stuff, and the person behind the counter telling me, oh, I have to be careful not to break this one. And I remember the excitement coming home, unboxing this thing and having to put it on charge immediately, and just sitting there, like it felt like it was charging for hours. And I was just sitting there with so much excitement, so much enthusiasm for this. And I was lucky because I got to play all the games I had on that. And the DSi to me was incredible. You had a camera, which to me was crazy. I took pictures with this. I took so many pictures with this. They're still on this, but luckily I managed to get them transferred from the SD card. They were on my 3DS for a while, but the SD card is being used on my 3DS, so those pictures have since been dropped to me on my phone on Google Drive. So I still have those photos, but I would take so many pictures with this. I would take random pictures of my friends, of family members, of books I was reading. I used this so much. I was so fascinated with the camera on this. And oh my god, flip note. The one thing nobody talks about with the DSi is the flip note studio. No one was ever any good with it, obviously, but it was so fun to just mess around and just do stupid shit on it. It was the most fun thing, and I used that probably more than I used the games, honestly. But I remember the camera system being absolutely incredible. This still works perfectly. The only problem is it's fallen out of my pocket quite a few times. The R button is cracked and the L button kind of doesn't work. But I can turn this on right now. It needs to be charged, but this works still perfectly fine. So I kept it around because it still works. But I never really use it now. I just keep it there just out of the sake that it's still in good condition. And I kind of treat it with respect now, since I was too young to treat this with respect. I want to treat this with respect since I have so many memories with this, and this is a huge part of my childhood. So I don't really play anything in it anymore. I could get these fixed, but there's no point since I have my 3DS and it's backwards compatible. But I played this all the time. I can still play games like New Super Mario Bros. DS on it because I don't require these buttons, but I don't really use this. Occasionally I turn it on to look back through the camera and things like that, but other than that I never really use this anymore, but it does still work. Don't know why I got the case. I got the case literally not long before getting the 3DS. My DSi had already taken quite a battering at this point, but I got it anyway. And it looks, the red and blue actually looks really nice with it, I must say. But luckily at like age 10, 11, I was more aware. I was hitting it out of rage because, anyone who's ever rage quit a game before, you know what it's like. but I was always so scared of breaking this and losing all my pictures and everything. So luckily I was more cautious with this. Finally, the 3DS, I got this in like 2012, or maybe it was 2013, I think, actually. God, so many memories with this. This still works perfectly. At the start of the last year, I actually had to get the R button fixed because it was starting to break on its own, although I have dropped this out of my pocket a few times, but that still works. The L button's a bit wonky, and nowadays the D-pad, the circle pad thing keeps coming off, but I can put it back on, but it is starting to drift as well. But other than that, this is in, I wouldn't say perfect condition because of all the scratch and stuff, but it works perfectly. Man, just like the flip note on this, I used to use the pictures on this, the face shooters thing, I used to always play around with that. I transfer my pics over. I never used the camera on this. I don't know if it was just my version, but the camera is absolutely horrendous on this. It takes like 10 minutes to load and it's really bad quality. But I only really used it as like a backup for all my photos from my DSi. I felt like it was a saving grace for me when I got this and found out that I could play DS games on it. I assumed I could because it is a DS type console, but I didn't know for sure at the time. And I feel so great. At the time I took that for granted because I was a kid, but looking back on it now, I'm so grateful to Nintendo that the 3DS was backwards compatible, because I play most of my DS games on it more than I play my 3DS games. I have way more DS games. And, you know, I'd played them so many times, and, you know, if this wasn't backwards compatible, I wouldn't have been able to play most of those games, like, ever again. So that's one thing I'm extremely thankful for. I remember getting this Christmas 2012, again, sitting at the counter, charging this in the kitchen, waiting there for like 2 hours, the excitement. I think Bowser's Inside Story was the first game I played on it, since it was the last game I'd played on this when my R button started acting up. And I remember all the memories. Mario 3D Land, an underrated classic. I have so many games, I would show them all here, but it would take up like too much room. I used to play this a lot. I still do, actually. Street Pass. This was an interesting thing. The fact that you could walk around and it would record your footsteps and give you coins. I used to do this a bit in the beginning, not as much anymore. I did it last year and I've done it a few times. I used to play Street Pass Quest, the me thing. I've only ever beaten that once. Collected a few puzzle pieces in the Street Pass Puzzle Quest. You know, that was a weird gimmicky thing, but it was really interesting. Ever since the Switch came out, I haven't played as much, obviously. Funny enough, my situation exactly like Arlo. I adore the 3DS. I treasure all my memories with it, but I don't play it as much because I have my Switch, or else I'm replaying games from my Wii. So this thing is probably going to have a really long life. You know, I don't know how long these things can last without breaking down. If I assume 6 years, then I have another year or two out of this at least, because even though I've dropped it a few times, it is obviously much thicker, kind of, than the other two, but it is better quality. I've only dropped it a few times, and I haven't like hit it out of rage or anything. I've been very careful about that. And the fact that I don't play it, like I play it and then I beat a game and I leave it and I don't come back to it for another 5 or 6 months. So my 3DS in the past like 2 to 3 years hasn't been used as much. So I don't know if that means I'm going to get a longer use for it, it'll last longer, or if it's going to die sooner because I'm not using it as much. I don't know, but I'm going to take a note from Arlo, and I'm probably going to buy a 3DS, a brand new 3DS soon. See, because this will last me like another 2 to 3 years, especially if I continue playing it as seldom as I do. But if I get a brand new one for when this dies, that brand new one will last me till like 2040, because I'll barely play this, and when I get that, I'll barely play it. Plus, it'll be brand new, and you know, I really think I will get a new one, because when this dies, since Nintendo are not manufacturing them anymore, that is a huge chunk. Most of my games actually are DS/3DS games. Most of my games I would not be able to play after this goes, so that is something I am looking into. But yeah, it's crazy now to mention it. Most of my games are 3DS/DS games. Like I have 8 Wii games, 8 or 9 Switch games, and I have about like 24 DS games. Not counting ones I've lost the boxes for. So I have like nearly 25 to 30 handheld games. But you know, even doing this video, it is getting me emotional because this is the end of an era. I have so many memories. As I said, I used to go into school. The last day of school in primary school, we would be allowed to bring in our DSs, and we'd always play Mario Kart. And I own Mario Slam Basketball. I'd bring that in, and we'd have so much fun with that. The mini games in Mario 64, the mini games in Mario Bros. DS, plus the multiplayer in this is underrated. Sorry, extremely underrated. There's so many memories in school, and as I said, pictures I'd take with friends, all this kind of stuff. And for me, that is a huge bit of my life that's kind of going away now. So now more than ever, I treasure all 3 of these really dearly because there will never be anything like it. You know, it comes from an era where Nintendo were extremely experimental. With the Switch becoming a handheld home console hybrid, where does that leave the future of Nintendo? I've had this discussion before and it's been very tricky to predict, but you know, I don't think they're ever going to do another handheld like this ever again, and that means the DS family is truly kind of like the last of its kind, because it is, when you go into the DSi and the 3DS, they really are the perfect handheld. Being able to take pictures, social media, I think you had a minimal use. You could use YouTube, the camera, you know, there were so many things you could do with it. It was more than just a console, you know, it became a very sociable thing, like the Miiverse and all these kind of things. And it is sad, you know, I am, as I said, I'm getting emotional doing this because so many memories. My first video games I've ever played were with this. And this has been the successor to it, and now this is coming to an end. It really is the end of an era. We've never seen anything like this before from Nintendo, and we probably won't see anything like it again. And it's sad that future generations won't get to experience the fun, the joy, everything that was brought with these, but I digress. It's just a sign of the times. We knew this was coming in. Someday the Switch is going to suffer the exact same fate. But obviously, you know, its time has come. You know, it had an incredible run. The 3DS from 2011 up to now has had an incredible run. And I'm really thankful to Nintendo for all the games, you know. 2 Metroid games on the 3DS. And the remakes of the Mario and Luigi games. Plus the older like Mario and Luigi 3D games they've made. There's so much diversity, and that's what makes this such a fun console. There's something for everyone on it, from Nintendogs to Animal Crossing to Pokemon to Metroid to Mario to Zelda. It is incredible, and I don't know what else to say about it. I don't think I have anything else to say about it other than me sitting in nostalgia here for it, but I just felt I had to put this video out there because this was a huge part of my life, and this is all being left behind now, and it's time to say goodbye, but I will treasure these. I don't know if I'll ever throw away this. Definitely not my DSi, and definitely not my 3DS, since this is in perfect condition, more or less. But man, you know, it is... I'm at a loss for words here because I'm getting emotional, but I'm sure plenty of you will share the same sentiment. There will be nothing like this again. There's so much to love about it, and as you can see here, that is my collection of games. I posted that as a tribute video over on TikTok. If anyone's interested, I'll leave a link in the description. But yeah, that is it. I just had to throw my thoughts out there. My respect. Everything with this console. It is the end of an era. It's not just the end of a console. This is like 2 generations worth of gaming that has reached an end. And even though it really reached its end last year, this is now the final nail in the coffin for it. And yeah, all I can say is thank you, Nintendo. Thank you so much for everything for this. But yeah, that is it from me. Let me know your feelings and thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you own a 3DS? Do you own an original DS? What games have you played? What are your memories with it? Do you have any special memories? Would you taking pictures? Things like this. I want to hear everything, all your fond memories with this handheld system, because this truly is something special, and it will go down in history. And I want to hear everything you have to say down in the comment section below. So yeah, with that all said, thank you all for watching, and please subscribe. Novus Corvés out.